Drenched in mystery and power, the Rothschild family has long been whispered about in the corridors of conspiracy, luxury, and control. How did this family, starting from modest roots, come to hold the strings of nations and fortune? This video will peel back the layers of speculation, intrigue, and cold hard facts surrounding the Rothschild dynasty. From tracing their meteoric rise, reveal astonishing secrets, explore shadowy alliances, and expose the truth behind their unyielding grip on the world's wealth. This is more than a story, it's a revelation. Before we get started, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Power, control, wealth beyond imagination. The Rothschild family name is filled in myths, influence, and a legacy that spans continents. But behind the gilded mansions and whispers of world domination lies a saga that could rival any work of fiction. This is their story. Our tale begins in the 1740s, deep in the heart of Frankfurt's Judengasse. This narrow, crowded lane was more than a home. It was a crucible. Here, amid the clamor of merchants and the rustle of gold coins exchanging hands, Mayer Amschel Rothschild was born in 1744. The child who would grow up not just to challenge the world's greatest power brokers, but to bend them to his will. Mayer wasn't born into luxury. He was born into survival, into strategy. With a mind sharper than a blade, he recognized early that money was not just exchanged, but wielded, and he would wield it better than anyone before or after. By the 1760s, his keen business acumen had earned him the trust of Prince William of Hesse-Kassel, a name that commanded immense power and wealth. The prince, with coffers so full they gleamed like rivers of gold, would become Mayer's ticket into the world's most exclusive circles. But Mayer knew that true power lay not in gold alone. It was in the flow of information and how that information was used. This revelation was a cornerstone upon which the dynasty was built. As Mayer aged, he laid the foundation for an empire that would surpass the wildest dreams of monarchs. His 5 sons, Amschel, Solomon, Nathan, Karl, and James, each carried a piece of their father's ambition and spread it across Europe like wildfire. Frankfurt to London, Paris, Vienna, Naples, the Rothschilds had their outposts, their fingers dipped in every venture, every risk, every reward. But the true legend of the Rothschilds crystallized on one fateful day in 1815, the Battle of Waterloo. Napoleon versus the combined might of the European alliance, led by the Duke of Wellington. While armies clashed, Nathan Rothschild was already 2 steps ahead. With an intelligence network so advanced, he received news of the outcome before the British government itself. What Nathan did next became one of the most debated stories in financial history. He strode into the stock exchange, his face a mask of calculated despair, and began selling off his stocks. The message was unmistakable. Britain had lost. Panic ensued, and prices plummeted. But then in the chaos, Rothschild agents covertly bought everything at rock-bottom prices. When the true news of Wellington's victory finally broke, stocks soared, and Nathan pocketed a profit so astronomical it would fund generations. This singular maneuver immortalized the Rothschilds not just as bankers, but as puppet masters, unseen yet omnipresent. Whispers grew. Did Nathan single-handedly rig the fate of nations? Did he have the power to bankrupt kingdoms with a whisper? What started as quiet speculation soon evolved into unshakable legend. Records from the era reveal more than transactions. They reveal correspondences that allude to something bigger. Loans to entire governments, lines of credit so vast that kings and emperors found themselves at the mercy of Rothschild decisions. In 1825, when a financial panic threatened to unravel the Bank of England, it was none other than Nathan Rothschild who stepped in to stabilize the economy, a move that secured not only England's financial lifeline, but his legacy as the empire's silent benefactor. The Rothschilds built more than just banks. They built the very systems that would support the world's industrial revolutions. Railways in Europe, funded by Rothschild money. Armies that defended borders, armed by Rothschild credit. For nearly a century, no financial decision of significance occurred without a Rothschild presence. But how deep did their influence go? And at what cost to those who opposed them? Rothschild legacy in the modern era, unmasking power beyond empires. As the dust of the 19th century settled and the world stepped into a new age of uncertainty, the Rothschild Dynasty, with its centuries-old grasp on financial supremacy, faced challenges that would test not only their ingenuity, but their very survival. With revolutions toppling monarchies and new powers vying for influence, the question loomed: how far would the Rothschilds go to maintain their empire? The 19th century was a time of unprecedented transformation. The Rothschilds, with their unparalleled network, did not just survive this wave. They rode it like seasoned mariners, navigating through tumultuous waters with deft precision. The Industrial Revolution was not just a period of progress. It was a proving ground for the family's adaptability. Investments shifted from traditional loans to the funding of massive projects, railways, coal mines, and burgeoning steel empires. In 1850, Lionel de Rothschild, Nathan's son, set his eyes on a political breakthrough that would solidify the family's influence not just in finance, but within the halls of political power. Despite widespread opposition due to anti-Semitic barriers, Lionel would become the first Jew to sit in the British Parliament in 1858, paving the way for a broader vision of influence. With a seat in Parliament, the Rothschild name was no longer whispered solely in the corridors of banking. It was spoken aloud in government chambers. The family's voice now influenced legislation and policy, further fueling the belief that they were not just financiers, but architects of power itself. As Europe teetered on the edge of the 20th century, the winds of war grew stronger. The world was on the brink of the Great War, later known as World War I, and the Rothschilds once again became silent witnesses and participants. But the stakes were higher, and the alliances more convoluted. World War I was a crucible of power, where nations fought not just for survival, but for supremacy. While trenches filled with the cries of young men, financiers like the Rothschilds played a longer, quieter game. Their influence stretched beyond European borders, connecting with American banking through intricate webs of investment in defense industries, commodities, and post-war reconstruction. But what followed the war was even more curious. The Treaty of Versailles, 1919, with its crippling conditions on Germany, was often whispered to bear the imprint of financial powers aiming to reshape Europe to their advantage. Could it be that the Rothschild influence extended into the drafting of such monumental agreements? Historians and conspiracy theorists alike debate the extent of the Rothschilds' hand in reshaping the post-war world. Some argue that their interests were served best by a Europe on the brink, ever needing financial rescues that only they could offer. But as the storm clouds gathered yet again in the late 1930s, the family faced the most significant threat to their empire: the rise of Nazi Germany. During World War II, the Rothschilds faced confiscation and persecution. Properties were seized, and the families scattered to protect themselves from a regime that would see their legacy destroyed. But even amidst such devastation, their influence was never fully erased. Secretive networks in Switzerland and other neutral territories ensured that the Rothschild legacy endured, albeit with scars that would last generations. Yet after the war, the whispers took on a new, more modern tone. Gone were the days of blatant, audacious stock maneuvers. The post-war Rothschilds emerged not just as bankers, but as quiet puppeteers of global finance, shifting from overt power to an almost ghostly presence. In the latter half of the 20th century, the Rothschilds diversified into mining, oil, and even the media. By the 1980s, their reach had transformed from a European powerhouse to a global labyrinth. As the Cold War divided the world into East and West, financial empires like the Rothschilds thrived in the gray areas, where influence knew no borders. And now, in the 21st century, the Rothschild name is still synonymous with power, albeit quieter. The family is said to have holdings that extend to major banks, investments in technology, and more. Legacy of Misinformation: Unraveling Myths and the Rothschilds' Modern Narrative. In 2015, the British newspaper The Independent embarked on an investigation that reignited centuries-old myths surrounding one of the world's most enigmatic families, the Rothschilds. The investigation, led by journalism professor Brian Cathcart, took readers deep into the origins of anti-Semitic narratives that have long stalked the Rothschild name. But where did these conspiracy theories begin, and why do they persist to this day? The trail leads back to 1846, when a political pamphlet penned by Georges Darneville under the pseudonym Satan began making rounds across Europe. This publication was more than mere satire. It was a carefully crafted piece of propaganda, steeped in mistrust and designed to stoke the fires of anti-Semitism. The most famous and enduring passage from Darneville's pamphlet recounted the alleged actions of Nathan Rothschild on June 18, 1815, the day of the Battle of Waterloo. According to this tale, Rothschild, seeking to leverage the chaos for financial gain, supposedly rushed to the Belgian coast after the battle and paid an exorbitant fee to cross the English Channel amidst a fierce thunderstorm. He was said to have arrived in London 24 hours before the news of Napoleon's defeat was formally announced, securing an advantage that earned him and his brothers a staggering profit of 135 million francs. But in reality, this story, captivating as it was, had no basis in fact. Cathcart's research unveiled glaring inaccuracies. On that fateful June day, Nathan Rothschild was nowhere near Waterloo. Furthermore, records showed no storm raging over the English Channel. The Rothschilds did indeed profit from their strategic financial dealings during wartime, but the legend that they orchestrated and exploited the outcome of Waterloo to such an extent was a fabrication, a dangerous one, intertwined with the darker history of European anti-Semitism. Even respected institutions weren't immune to the story's allure. The entry on Rothschild declared that Nathan Rothschild was present at Waterloo, transmitting news of the victory before anyone else and reaping vast profits from an anticipated surge in the market. This endorsement by Britannica helped cement the story as historical truth for decades. Yet, as Cathcart and other historians have since demonstrated, such chronicling by authoritative sources only perpetuated the myth. The damage was done. The narrative was absorbed into the collective psyche, an emblem of wealth seen as shadowy and suspect. But if the 19th century forged these myths, the 21st century has seen their bizarre evolution. In March 2018, a new wave of conspiracy emerged from an unexpected source. Trayon White Sr., a lawmaker in Washington, D.C., posted on social media claiming that the Rothschilds control the climate to create natural disasters they can pay for to own the cities. His post linked the family to conspiracy theories surrounding the Rockefeller Foundation's Resilient Cities Initiative, an urban strategy promoting resilience against climate change. The backlash was swift and unforgiving. Accused of echoing age-old anti-Semitic tropes, White issued a public apology, citing ignorance of the origins of these conspiracy theories. He engaged with Jewish activist groups in an attempt to educate himself on the dangers of perpetuating such falsehoods. However, his attempt to make amends took a strange turn. During an April visit to the Holocaust Memorial Museum, White's remarks were met with raised eyebrows and, at times, disbelief. Halfway through the tour, he left abruptly without explanation, refusing to comment on the experience. It was a stark reminder of how deep-rooted and resilient these myths could be, even among those in positions of influence. White's story is not an anomaly, but part of a troubling trend. The persistence of myths seeded in the 1840s, revived and reshaped for contemporary audiences. Despite exhaustive debunking and the efforts of scholars, journalists, and activists, the specter of Rothschild conspiracy theories continues to haunt the narrative of Western discourse. The Rothschilds, despite centuries of philanthropy, advocacy for Jewish rights, and contributions to global finance and culture, remain figures of intrigue and misinformation. The narrative has shifted from wealth accrued through brilliant strategy to a symbol of an unseen, manipulative hand, an emblem not of success, but of suspicion. Mysteries are never as they seem, and the story is far from over. To explore more hidden truths and unravel history's most complex tales, subscribe to Mystery Media, where shadows meet the light and legends are laid bare.